Welcome back to Turning Hard Times into Good Times. I'm your host, Jay Taylor, and I'm pleased to have with me once again Robert Giustra. Robert is the Chief Executive Officer and Chairman of Columbus Gold. He's been actively engaged in the creation, financing, development, and management of publicly traded junior mining companies since 1992. His early experience in public markets includes working as an investment advisor with a national securities broker and later as an investment banker with an international investment dealer, where he co-founded the institutional equity sales and cooperative finance departments with a specialist focus on the junior mining sector. And since 1998, Robert has held senior executive positions with and served on the board of a number of junior mining companies. He is presently also chairman of Columbus Copper Corp. Before we say hello to Robert, I should mention that Columbus Gold has approximately 135 million shares outstanding, and its recent price has been around 40 to 48 cents Canadian. In other words, this is a company with a still relatively, quite small market cap, actually, I think, for given the number of ounces of gold it has in the ground. And it is a company that is one of my top picks. It is also a company that I own shares in, which I have purchased in the United States on the over-the-counter market under CBGDF. The symbol in Canada is CGT. That you can buy it in Canada or in the United States. So it's really good to have you with me again, Robert. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Jay.
You know, you really do have a very unusual situation, I think, Robert, and I have to say kudos to you for the deal you struck a year ago or so with a very large internationally large gold mining company, because it's really difficult for junior mining companies, especially in this environment, to move multi-million ounce gold projects along. So I really want to start out by asking you to talk to our listeners about your project in French Guiana, the Paul Isnard project, and you do have just a whisker under of 50% interest in that project. Talk to our listeners. How many millions of ounces are in the resource now at the Paul Isnard project, and perhaps you can give us an idea of exploration activities there as well.
Sure, I'd be happy to do so. Paul Isnard is located in French Guiana, as you pointed out. First thing I want to say is that it's in a safe mining jurisdiction. French Guiana is part of France. The deposit is accessible, and that shouldn't really be underestimated in this part of the world, where many of the attractive gold deposits are hard to get to. Usually can't drive to them. You have to barge down a river on a boat or fly in. Paul Isnard is an exception in the sense that you can actually drive straight to the deposit, which makes it a bit of an exception in this part of the world. Mm-hmm. The deposit is large. Presently contains 4.3 million ounces of gold based on the previous resource estimate that was completed mid last year. Since then, we've drilled about an additional 18,000 meters. We've drilled the entire deposit off with spacing of 50 meters. And those results have been announced over the months. They're still coming in. We expect to announce all of the results by mid-February, but they're exactly what we expected. And that means that the present 4.3 million ounce deposit, when we announce a new resource estimate around the end of February or March, we expect that to be significantly larger and with a higher level of confidence, meaning there are additional drill holes with tighter spacing, mm-hmm. Providing further confirmation that the gold is there. The deposit is mineable by open pit methods as opposed to more expensive underground methods. And we just announced yesterday the results of our metallurgical studies. As you know, Jay, there are a lot of gold deposits out there that have ounces in the ground, but they're not worth anything if you can't actually get the gold out of the ground. Mm-hmm. That comes down to the metallurgy. And Paul Isnard has metallurgy recoveries of better than 95%. So 95% of that gold is recoverable.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it looks like a pretty straightforward, not technically challenging project, the way it looks at this point in time anyway, although I guess maybe there are no gold mining projects that don't have some challenges along the way. But how soon do you think this might be moved towards production? How many years away are we yet?
Well, we're several years away yet, Jay. There is a process. The next milestone is to get a better handle on the economics, which we're confident are going to be attractive. We're aiming for a preliminary economic assessment in the spring of this year. Mm-hmm. That would be following off the heels of the new resource estimate. Mm-hmm. The PEA will give us an indication of what areas we have to focus on to improve the economics, make them even better, mm-hmm. With the objective of completing a full bankable feasibility study, incorporating all the environmental aspects, economic, political, and so on, into one bankable document that we can provide to a financial institution for funding for construction of the mine. So the feasibility study must be completed by March 2017 under our agreement with our partner Nord Gold, which you alluded to earlier. And typically mine construction can take up to 2 years for a mine of this size. So we'd be looking at 2019 and 20 for production, but that's not really where the upside is on the stock, as you know, Jay. The upside on the share price comes from the growth phase of the project, adding ounces and de-risking the project, and most of those milestones will be met over the next 18 months.
Yeah, indeed, and of course, actually, in fact, I've seen many times illustrated both in reality and also hypothetically that it's during the discovery phase and, as the ounces are building up in the ground when the share price generally can have its most of its upside. And then you go into a period where it might go sideways or even trend down a bit while you're going through what's sort of the mundane but very necessary aspects of building a mine and financing it and all of that. So I would say to our listeners that this is a stock that you really need to keep your eyes on because of these drivers that we just heard about. First, we're going to see an updated resource report and then a PEA. And then, my feeling is, Robert, I don't know, nobody has a crystal ball, but we've been through a really tough time here of a couple of years. I think when people start looking at gold mining more favorably again, and I believe they're going to do that because of improving economics for gold mining companies, especially with falling energy prices, that people will start looking at companies like this and start bidding up the price again. I mean, you are actually with a $50 million market cap or so in U.S. money, 55, 60 million maybe, quite undervalued for a company with with those numbers of ounces in the ground, and of course, we're expecting those numbers to grow. So the timing? So we're looking at a few years away yet, and anything else you can tell us about Paul Isnard? I mean, your deal there with Nord Gold. Maybe you could just mention that quickly to our listeners.
Sure, I'll comment on your reference to being undervalued. Mm-hmm. You're exactly right, Jay. We are definitely undervalued by many different measures. I think I can probably point one out right now. We're presently being valued at about $25 per ounce in the ground. Mm-hmm. As the confidence level grows in the project, from activities that we're currently undertaking and going to announce over the coming months, such as the updated resource estimate with the additional drilling, the preliminary economic assessment in the spring. We could expect a re-rating based on ounces in the ground. Typically, with that kind of information, we could expect to be valued at not $25 per ounce in the ground, which you'd expect at our present stage, but at higher levels, perhaps 40 or 50 or 60, depending on the case. Mm-hmm. So we expect an immediate re-rating to come in the near future, strictly based on milestones that are expected to happen imminently. Mm-hmm. Our deal with Nord Gold is an exceptional one for a number of different reasons. Nord Gold is the 13th largest gold company in the world, but it's the fastest growing gold company in the world. They operate 9 gold mines in 4 different countries. and they are earning an interest in our Paul Isnard project by funding all of the work, which consists of about $30 million in expenditures and completion of the bankable feasibility study targeted for latest March 2017. In return for funding that work, they will earn a 50% interest, 50.01% interest in the Paul Isnard project. So in effect, we're being carried to feasibility by Nordgold. They're spending all of the money. In addition, they pay us a 10% management fee. Mm-hmm. So 10% of all the money spent on the project results in a 10% management fee to us, mm-hmm. which covers all of our overheads. And,
that's good too.
Goes a long way in this type of market.
Absolutely.
So we fully expect to achieve the feasibility study and not spend any of our own money.
Mm-hmm. All right. So
the deal is exceptional in the sense that for performing all those activities and spending that money, they only earn half of the project, mm-hmm. leaving us with the balance.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I've seen 70-30 deals. That seems to be more typical, that kind of thing. So at some point in time, though, when it comes to building the mine and the mill and all that, you will need to come up with your portion of the money, or what happens?
Well, we have the option of funding our 49.99% of the mine, mm-hmm. Or we can allow Nordgold to do it at our election. They can construct the mine, take it to the point of achieving production, and we would be diluted accordingly. Our dilution formula would require them, just to use one example, for them to dilute us to a 10% interest in the producing mine, they would have to spend over $1 billion in a scenario where we have a 4.5 million ounce deposit. Mm-hmm. So there would have to be a significant amount of spending in order to dilute us out of the project. Mine construction for a mine like this may cost $400 or $500 million, mm-hmm. is our best estimate at this time. And if we were to allow them to actually build the mine, not have to put up any further money, the likely scenario is that we end up somewhere between a 20 and 30% interest mm-hmm. In the mine. But as you said, we can retain our entire 49.9% interest by obtaining our own financing from a financial institution, mm-hmm. which, of course, is the purpose of the feasibility study, which should enable us to do so.
Sure. Yeah. Well, the options are open, and it's good to know that you got a strong partner that is moving things along very well. You do also have, and I think one of the bigger, longer-term attractions, at least from my point of view, for your company also, is your portfolio of prospective gold targets, gold and silver, I presume, in Nevada. Could you take a minute or two to just tell our listeners about that?
Yeah, we have a portfolio of 15 gold projects in Nevada. However, there's one that stands out, which we call our Eastside project. Eastside was a virgin discovery made by us last year. It is in an area of exceptional infrastructure. It's 6 miles from the highway on a well-maintained gravel road from the highway that goes from Reno to Las Vegas. There is a power transmission line that runs right through the project claim block. There is water available on site. It's just the dream location to find a gold mine, Jay, and it's just outside of the mining town of Tonopah, with all the infrastructure you would need. And of course, it's in the United States, which mm-hmm. is perhaps, and specifically Nevada, perhaps the safest mining jurisdiction in the world. Mm-hmm. We're pretty excited about it because it appears at this preliminary stage to have district scale potential. Mm. It's a very large claim block, and what I mean by district scale potential is we're finding gold everywhere at surface. I believe we now have 6 major targets with surface showings, one of which has been drilled. and we'll be following up with a follow-up drill program starting around spring of this year. We're pretty excited about it. It's a pretty significant event for Nevada, we think, which already produces about 8% of the gold in the world and 80% of the gold in the United States.
Yeah, a significant event for Nevada is saying something, of course, as you point out. Well, are you spending some money then? What sort of budget do you have set aside for the East Side project? And also, maybe you could just also take a moment to comment on, how well funded your company is at the moment.
The budget for East Side, and this is a project we have 100% interest in. We have absolutely no intention of farming it out or bringing a partner in. That's the beauty of working in Nevada. It's a cost-effective jurisdiction to operate a exploration program in terms of your drilling costs and all your available labor and expertise, which is right at your doorstep. So we're going to move this one forward and keep 100% interest ourselves. That's our intention at this time. Although I can tell you that all the major mining companies, most of the major mining companies in Nevada have been asking questions and making inquiries about our results. But our budget for 2015 is about $9 million, which will include a very significant drill program. Over the next 18 months, we plan to drill up to 250 holes, which will achieve the objective of a resource estimate on just one of the about half dozen targets we've identified from surface gold showings on the property. Wow! So that's another driver potentially for your share price as well, as if you can come up with some good results. When do you think you might have a resource then? By the end of this year, possibly? Well, the resource would be targeted for the first quarter of 2016. Okay. All right. Well, that's lots. And you have other companies, other projects there as well that I suppose when the markets improve, you will be leasing some of those out to some other companies, possibly. In a better market environment, I think there'd be a high level of demand for some of those other projects. We're 100% focused on East Side and Nevada. We have no intention, other than maintenance costs, no intention of spending any other money in Nevada at any of the other projects. East Side displays all the characteristics of a district scale discovery, and we feel that it's not necessary to devote any capital to any of the other assets. East Side is the sort of project that most companies are looking for, and I'm pleased to say that we think it's a significant discovery, and that's where we're going to focus our efforts. Then, how much money do you have in the till right now? Are you funded for that program this summer? We're funded for about half that project. We have about $5 million in the bank. So we will have to go back to the market at some point. I'm anticipating around mid this year, and to raise the funds required to complete the rest of that exploration program. I must ask you also to comment briefly on your geological team, because you have some people that have had quite a track record in Nevada, I believe, as well, right? I think that's the key. It's all about people, Jay. Sure. And as you well know, one of our key directors, Andy Wallace, has a long history of discovery and mine development in Nevada. He's responsible for the discovery of about 8 economic deposits, which have all gone into production. Wow! All in the state of Nevada, and it's an exceptional track record, and he is recognized by industry as being one of the most successful prospectors in the history of the state of Nevada. So we're extremely fortunate that he's a part of our management team. He's exclusively focused on Columbus Gold business, and he manages all our company's activities in the state of Nevada and the United States. Oh, very good. Well, it's you're right about that. It's all about people, and I know that you have an ability to work with people, which is what I think most successful CEOs they have, that people capability as well.
So, I feel really good about your story. We'll be watching it. I'll certainly be watching it as a shareholder. There's hundreds of junior mining companies out there, Robert. So how do you, if just to summarize perhaps our discussion, why should people pay perhaps a little more attention to Columbus Gold than to the vast majority of the other ones out there?
Well, I think the key reason is we actually have a deposit. Most of the junior mining companies, just on the TSX Venture Exchange, where we have our principal listing, there are about 1,200 junior mining companies. Yeah. We're ranked 27th in terms of our market capitalization compared to those companies.
Wow.
Which is about $50 million US. But we've completely outperformed all of our peers over the last calendar year of 2014, and we've greatly, obviously, have outperformed the gold market, the GDXJ, which is the junior mining market, and just the TSX Venture market in general. And there's a reason for that. It's because we have a major deposit that we're actually working on in an industry where nobody really is spending any money because there isn't a lot of capital
right
in the junior mining sector at this time. Gold is out of favor. As you know, that's the time you want to invest in a sector when it's out of favor. So that's where we find ourselves now. We have capital. We are very actively working on both of our projects in Paul Isnard and in Nevada. We're drilling. Practically nobody is drilling in the industry, and we're getting results. We're getting excellent results, and we have a very large deposit when most of our peers are just looking to make a discovery. We're actually developing a gold mine.
No, it's a good point. I recently talking to Eric Coffin, and he made that point about your company as well, that you're one of the few that are actually out there doing something, drilling and exploring at this point in time. The rest have sort of gone in hibernation. So you have some real drivers coming out here that we'll want to keep our eyes on. And is there anything else you might want to share with us today? I think you've pretty well summarized it, probably.
Yeah, I think we covered most of the bases, Jay. I appreciate your time today and the opportunity to tell the story again. It's always a pleasure to come on the show.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have good stories to be told on my show. So thank you very much also, Robert, for your time. And I hope to do it again sometime in the not-too-distant future.
Will do. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.